Welcome to the Sixth Wheels Consulting Podcast, dialoguing disability and discussing difference, inclusion, and all abilities in today's world. Now here are your hosts, Matthew Shapiro and Bob Nolly.
Welcome back. There you are. I recognize you. Come up here, sit down, have a seat. You have found yourself here, episode 13 of the Sixth Wheels Consulting Podcast. It's Dr. Bob Nolly here. Hi, you look great. And so does my buddy Matthew Shapiro. Matthew, welcome.
Hey, Bob, we made it to Lucky 13, Bob. How awesome
Lucky 13, yeah, let's get this thing cut and get out of here because, I don't want... We did just, we mentioned tornadoes last time. Didn't I say we weren't going to talk about the weather? But then now trees are falling over. So, yeah, let's get this done before the trees fall over. Lucky 13.
Okay.
I don't know what to say about that.
It's all right.
Hey, indulge me for just a second here.
Sure. I love to indulge.
Folks are giving you great feedback about the show here, and we've really struck a chord, and we're serving... we're starting to get some traction and serve, folks that are interested in this topic. Just to tell you folks where I came from, we've told the story of how Matthew and I met. I come out of the leadership space. It sounds like a car. I come out of the leadership space because that is what I've studied and that is what has become, my life's work, whether it's been through technology or education or project management. So I'm over also as well on the Labrador Leadership Podcast. And yes, there's plenty of time to listen. So after you're done here, you can go over there and listen to that.
Cheap plug.
So, yeah, sure. There it is. Just like that. No, right now, go right now. Finish listening to this. So Matthew and I have had conversations, and we found there's an intersection here. And we found an article written by Jan Horn, who is a contributing writer for Forbes. And Jan, it's Xian. And she writes in the women's section at Forbes, and she's a leadership explorer, kind of just like me. And she talks about leadership within the context of disabilities. And I'm not going to read the whole thing here word for word, but you can link it up in the show notes on the website. But she says she grew up in a bubble where where making her happy and engaged in life was more important to her parents than, having a visible physical disability. And as soon as she could talk, her mother started to ask what she wanted to be when she grew up. And, I guess a lot of parents do that. So she was pushed to be more creative. She was pushed to be focused around being creative, being happy, and what the future held for her. And her parents were both artists, no surprise there, I guess, and really supported her individuality, and they each had their own businesses and ran them. And she was surrounded by leaders and dialogue about the future when she was at home, when she was at school. And leadership development, oh, I love that phrase, was ingrained in every aspect of her life. And she started running workshops on self-esteem at NYU over at the Initiative for Women with Disabilities, the JCC Manhattan and other places, that she realized that lots of young women that she was working with had never been asked about their goals before. So she asked them, these women with disabilities, to write about their day. One of them said, "It felt so good to write about my day because no one's ever asked me that before." Now, as I'm reading this now, that stops me dead. I'm grinding to a halt. So Jan suggests that we need to start thinking about conversations these girls were not having and why they're not having them for so many reasons. And she says this. She says we need to advocate for a leadership culture. Hey, I'm all for that. But it should be around the disability community. Because if we do that, if we do talk about this, sometimes it's discouraged. Or it's something that, I don't know. Do you think some people in this community think it's unattainable?
Was that a
Yeah, I'm asking you. I'll
Sure.
stop and take a breath there.
I was listening. I was deep ingrained into your passionate speech about leadership. I was listening very intently. I did not know that was a question, but yeah, no, I think leadership is something that. So I think it's twofold, and this is something that I struggle with myself. For all of our listeners that know, I'll just restate, I am a person with a disability. I am a person who uses a wheelchair, and I consider myself to be a very, very, very strong leader. I have had leadership ingrained into my system through programs that I've taken, through my personality that I have ingrained in myself. I have always been very outspoken. I have always been somebody to be a voice for the voiceless.
Say that one more time. That's really important. All the jabbering that we have done for a dozen episodes has now distilled down to this point. I just really am throwing up the stop sign right there and go, say that one more time.
No, as I said, I always have strived to be a voice for the voiceless. My greatest gift is my ability to talk. Sometimes my mother would tell me she wishes I would be quiet on more occasions, but that's neither here nor there. But my greatest strength is my ability to talk. But I have learned leadership skills, and I have embedded leadership skills into my DNA. But when it comes to leadership, one of the things that I always say is that we are not striving as a society, both as a society overall and a disability society, to allow people with disabilities to be in high positions of leadership power. And that's why this article, when you sent me this article, I jumped out of my chair, because this is something that I've been talking about on a regular basis, that we need to view leadership, and particularly leadership in disability culture, as a more higher attainable possibility. Why do we not have people with disabilities who are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies?
All right, listen to this. Yeah, listen to this. I'll throw up the stop sign now. So one thing she writes here really struck me, and it's like it should be the big title should be moved to the top. She says, living with a disability requires out-of-the-box thinking, creativity, and natural leadership.
Yes.
And she goes on to say, but the number of people who are treated as a leader, who occupy leadership roles, or see themselves as leaders, is largely unknown. Then the statistics start, and to have a good argument, you also have statistics. As of August 18, that's like yesterday, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, reports that a quarter of the population has a disability, 25%. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the employment rate of people with disabilities in the United States was 17% in 2017, compared to 65% of the population, which 34% of those employed with disabilities were in management positions, compared with 39%, almost 40% actually, for everyone else. So the difference for those in management, it doesn't seem that large, but the relative difference in the workforce size means that there are lots fewer people with disabilities in management. Research out of Cornell, 14% of people with disabilities have their bachelor's, compared to 33% for everyone else. That number strikes me as high, but Cornell, I respect them, so we can look up the research. So they say 14% of people have their BA or BS, but 33% of everyone else does as well. So these numbers tell us something about the relative participation of people with disabilities. It doesn't directly speak to leadership ability. It just talks about the participation level. And not every person that has a BA is a leader. Heck no. Trust me on that point. And not everybody that's looking for a job wants to be in a position of authority. So just because you might not have your bachelor's or look for a job doesn't mean you don't display leadership. That's my whole message that I push out to everybody. Leadership is not this big, heavy job that you only have access to because you're in the box in the org chart that's at the top. You need to lead your life, every key relationship that you have in your life, your family, your partner, your spouse, your children, your parents, everybody that's dear to you, and everybody that you meet in the workplace, everybody that you meet socially. It takes leadership skills to properly enhance those individual relationships.
So the first thing I would say is preach on. Preach on.
I'm sorry.
No, it's great. I love
Heal.
it. Hallelujah. Because I'm a big proponent of leadership as well. And I think leadership is a huge topic and passion point of mine as well. But as I was saying too, in addition to having people in leadership roles in management positions, why aren't they seeking to be government officials and trying to run for Senate or trying to run for Congress or trying to be governors of states or trying to be president of the United States? Why aren't they being in these big boardrooms and being these tremendous entrepreneurs that make a huge difference? And it's so ironic, Bob, because many of our listeners know I do a lot of public speaking, and I speak on college campuses. And one of the programs I'm actually getting ready to go present here in the next few months is a new leadership program that I have developed. And it has 5 models of leadership that I have developed. There's something called, or 5 models of leadership and being a leader that I have developed. There is magnetic leadership. There is person-centered leadership. There is tiptoe leadership. There is, give me 1 second. I've got to remember my 5. This is bad because I need to know this for my show. There is affirmative leadership, and there is tippy cup leadership. These are all leadership models that I've developed. So I'll give brief definitions of each one. A magnetic leader is a leader that your coworkers and your people are drawn to because of their personality. You want to work for them. You want to push for them. They encourage you. They are just people that you're drawn to. They're those really great oratory speakers. They're those people that are kind of those popular people in your workplace. Person-centered leadership is when the leader empowers the people that he works with or understands their strengths and weaknesses and tries to put them in the best positions possible for them to be successful as a unit. I often describe it in my speech as a basketball coach. A basketball coach is a perfect person-centered leader because they are always trying to put their team in the best position to win based on their players' skill sets.
Right.
So I always describe it as you would never put your worst free throw shooter in the game at the end of the game because you're not putting your player in the best position to be successful. Tiptoe leadership is kind of that conflict resolution, grab the bull by the horns type of leader where, they're not afraid to have those uncomfortable conversations. And they're not afraid to, if somebody's not pulling their weight, they're not afraid to go approach that person and say, hey, I really need you to step up here, and I really need you to help pull your weight with this team so that we can all get in the right direction. Then there is tippy cup leadership, which is, I am vulnerable, and I am, I make mistakes, but I do things to mitigate those mistakes. And it's called tippy cup leadership because I use the example of myself. Whenever I do a public speech, I always have a Tervis with me with a lid on it because I am prone to spilling liquid everywhere. And so I don't want to be a burden on someone else if I were to spill my liquid, to have to help me clean up and make up for my mistakes. So as a leader, I am comfortable enough, as a tippy cup leader, I am comfortable enough to recognize my shortcomings and do what I can to help mitigate those problems so that they don't become bigger problems down the road. And then the last of my 5 is affirmative leadership. And that is where the leader really is taking a step back. The people he's leading are really actually leading themselves, and they're just kind of there to, play devil's advocate in certain situations. They're there to affirm the people that they're working with, say that you're really doing a great job, you're doing a wonderful job. But so I've been thinking a lot about leadership lately with the development of this program. If people are interested, I would love to bring this program to their corporate to their corporate environment. There's a lot more detail. I just went into a very brief description of the program. We cover a lot. It's great for corporate environments. It's great for school environments. But I just think it's ironic that we have this topic of leadership here tonight, and particularly leadership from the standpoint of disability. I have said on a number of occasions, if you give somebody with a disability an opportunity, 9 times out of 10, they're going to knock your socks off because they are some of the most creative and out-of-the-box thinkers, as this article stated, that you will ever find. So why would you not want that in your workforce? And more importantly, why would you not want that in your leadership core?
Oh, all right. Shan wraps up by saying this. I believe leadership is not for the privileged few or for those in a bubble. It is inherent in every person with or without disabilities. Still, that seed has to be nurtured, encouraged, and have a light shine upon it so it'll flourish. We each have the power to feed those seeds around us. And she closes with that. I'm going to let that be the last word. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to episode 13 of the Six Wheels Disability Podcast. This is Bob Nolly with my friend and host, Matthew Shapiro. Think inclusion, keep rolling forward.
Thank you, everybody.